People say that Andor is the best Star Wars TV show ever made. But is that true? Or is it overhyped? Welcome back, everyone. We are here to talk about Andor. I know, it's been a minute. I have never talked about this show on my channel, and it took me a while to finish this series, to be honest with you. But by the time it ended, I could not believe what I had witnessed. And we are going to talk about how this series changed my perspective and in a way changed my life. Before we get into this, I want to know, what is your favorite Star Wars thing? Be it TV series or movie or book or comic, game. There is so many stories that you can experience within the Star Wars universe and in so many different types of media. I want to know what your favorite Star Wars thing is down in the comments, and let me know why you love it so much. When I first started Andor, my initial takeaway was, why is everyone so in love with this show? To me, it initially felt very slow, and I just couldn't really get into it. And I remember my editor, who will be editing this video, everyone say hi to my editor, Uptown Duck, in the comments. I remember Uptown Duck gushing about the show and just absolutely loving it. And I just didn't get it. And I heard everybody talking about how amazing it was. And I was like, okay, you know what? I need to get back to this show. And I need to give it another chance. I need to keep going with it a little bit more. Because I heard from everyone, the more you watch the show, the better it gets. And I was wondering, what am I missing here? And everything for me really lined up. Everything really just kind of fell into place when we got to the first heist of the show. And I think when I got to that point, it really started to click for me. What was the ticket for this series, why this series was so slow, and why that's important? And it really is. I think what you need to do with Andor is just get used to the pacing, because a lot of what they were doing in the beginning of the show is they are building a foundation for when everything can ramp up in the heist and then everything goes crazy. And with this show, the way that the pacing kind of works is you kind of go like this. It's like an exponential graph where everything, we start kind of low and then all of a sudden you just whoop right up to the end. And that is what every end of an act feels like in Andor. That's the end of each act. And after the act ends, we get these little time skips in Andor. And I actually really like the time skips. And that's also why it took me a while to finish this show, because after each end of the act, after each inciting incident where everything starts to go crazy, because everything has gone so crazy, you kind of need a break. And so I like these moments because they were able to give me a moment to take a break, and each act gets more and more crazy, and so you maybe might need more time between each part for the show. At least for me, that was how I experienced it, because this show has so much, I just needed time to process it. I mean, when you think about the trajectory of Andor, it's pretty crazy to think that really all of this, everything that we see in season 1 and 2, everything that leads us to Rogue One, started because a public service guy who's working for the Empire decided to be an asshole. Without that, Andor probably never would have joined the rebellion. And if he never got involved with the rebellion probably never would have defeated the Empire for how vital of a role Andor ends up playing. And it feels like as you go on in the show, once you get past that heist point especially, you really understand how neat this show is for what it does for the characters. Because we don't just get to understand the world through the personal ties to each major character. We zoom in and we do get to also see all of the personal stuff with them, but we also, as time goes on, zoom out and we get to see how these actions affect the world around the characters, and not even just the world, the universe is affected. The thing that I love about this show is that it's so high stakes. It's basically a story of a few people changing the course of history. No big deal, just changing the course of history, but it's really charming how it approaches it because we get to examine both the personal cost to the characters for what they're risking and following along with each of them individually. Like, we get to see the costs on Andor and Bix of getting involved in this war. We get to see the costs of them getting involved in this revolution, in this war, but we're also dealing with those bigger ramifications and those plays as we follow along with bigger characters as well in terms of the world and in terms of their name and their identities, like Mon Mothma and Luthen, in terms of how we built him up in the show and how vital he becomes to this rebellion as well. And even to a lesser extent, but on the opposite side, there's a lot that we build out with Deidre and Cyril in terms of the Empire side and how all of that works and their personal ties to it and the greater plots that the Empire has. That Palpatine has, really. We get to both zoom in and zoom out as we get to know these more influential characters in the world. And not only that, but we get to know these characters personally. We get to know everything that they've laid on the line, like with Luthen's speech, where when he is asked what he has given up in this fight, after he asks everyone to give up so many things, and he answers, he has literally given up everything. For him, this is very personal, and also it has become so personal for so long that at the same time, he almost has no ties anymore. He has literally burned everything in his old life to sacrifice every little thing so that hopefully in the future, people don't have to do what he has to do. People don't have to become what he has to become. And there's a lot of nuance to these characters as well. I mean, you look at the history of someone like Luthen, who you might think when you meet him that you know who this guy is. He's a rebel through and through. But then as we get to know him, we know that his history actually was on the Empire side originally. His origin is that he's a sergeant for the Empire who, because of what he's seen working for the Empire, decides to go the other way. And it shows us the intricacies of these two sides and how they directly influence one another. There's so much push and pull in the world, and it really plays with this idea of who these characters are. This is a show that extends beyond what we know Star Wars for. When it comes to the movies, when it comes to a lot of these classic characters like Luke or Leia or Obi-Wan Kenobi, a lot of them end up fitting these classic archetypes that you typically see in big hero stories. That is a lot of what Star Wars is. It is this big space epic. But with something like Andor, there's so much more nuance to who these characters are. And even when you think you know them, they surprise you. Like, for example, when we first meet Vel, who's part of Cassian's crew that he's with. And because we know Andor and he's the one that brings us kind of into the crew because we're following his story, you probably would assume that everyone else on his crew, like him, is kind of roguish. But then you get to know Vel, who's actually Mon Mothma's sister. She comes from an influential family. She comes from a place of privilege, and yet she still chooses to lay her life on the line to change the world, because even though she has everything, she sees the problems with this world and she thinks it needs to be fixed. So everyone's coming from these different walks of life to put everything they have on the line just to do something that they really believe in. It's a really powerful story that I think can tap into a lot of different human experiences as well, because it's not just about these characters being larger than life. It's also about how human and how relatable these characters are. There are just these experiences that are written into the show that are relatable for you as a person, even outside of this wild Star Wars fantasy, spacey universe. It really grounds the idea of who people are and makes it feel like you can really understand them, especially because we go into a lot of different perspectives. And something that I love about Andor, and something that I think it does that reminds me a lot of the books in the Star Wars universe, especially if we talk about something like Timothy Zahn's novels, it really goes into the perspective of the Empire through the individuals that work for the Empire, and seeing them as people and not just seeing them as this like evil force. I mean, there are evil people that work for the Empire, but for some people, this is just a job. And for people that live in areas where the Empire controls those areas, you don't really have a lot of options. As we see with someone like Cyril, who is already so dedicated to the Empire, when his loyalty is called into question, what he has to go through to earn back his place, when you see that and you experience that with him, you kind of understand why people get so just tied into this idea of serving the Empire, why they get wrapped up in all of it, and how hard it is to disentangle yourself. Because even if you do think that what the Empire is doing is wrong, which there's so much propaganda to the other side, and I mean, good luck even being able to see it that way. But let's say you even do begin to question. It's really hard to break free. And for most people, it genuinely just ends up being too late. You're already so far gone at that point. How do you extricate yourself? So there is a lot of depth when it comes to how Andor approaches all kinds of narratives in this world. And it really doesn't paint anyone fully as good or bad. There's so many shades of gray to who these people are. The other thing that I love is that understanding Cyril's journey directly helps us understand the stakes that the rebels have when they get involved with the rebellion. When you are involved with the rebellion, you're putting so much on the line, because look at how they treat their own at the Empire when they just are worried that they're questioning something. So if you are a rebel, the level to which they're willing to go to break you, as we see with Bix, is so drastic. It's so dramatic. It's so high. They do not just want to take your possessions from you. They want to take your life from you. And that's something that I love, is that everything in this story feels like it's building up the tension of both sides. It's building the world around it, and it's helping to heighten the stories of everyone that is in the cast. And it's not just the cast, by the way, although really, let's take a minute here to shout out our cast, because like I said, these cast members are amazing. And whether we're talking about Diego Luna as Cassian Andor, who is absolutely fantastic, who really, I believe, we would not have this show without. So hats off to him. He does an amazing job. And having watched the show, I understand now why we needed an Andor show, because Diego Luna. But also, we have amazing actors that are here supporting as well. We've got Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen. We've got Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera, who is absolutely amazing. And I could go on and on. I mean, I think everyone in this cast deserves to be mentioned, but I'll just say, like, even smaller characters like Catherine Hunter, who plays Cyril's mom, Edie. If you don't know Catherine Hunter, she's from another show that I love that honestly I really gotta make a video on. We really need to talk about this show. One of my favorite shows of all time, Rome. And in Rome, she plays Charmaine, who is Cleopatra's servant and basically her truest and greatest advisor that she has, the person that she trusts the most. Anytime I see an actor from Rome in something, I'm like, oh my goodness, hold my hat, because this is going to be an amazingly well-acted show. And also, what is it with Rome actors and Star Wars? Those things seem to be always now overlapping, and I love it. It means good things for Star Wars TV. So that is something that I feel just needs to be acknowledged, that every single actor in this show, and I really mean, even if I didn't mention their name, all of them, they all are amazing, and they all gave their all, I feel, for this performance. And it's not just about the acting, and it's not just about the story. It's also about the atmosphere of this show. And you know how that's created? With cinematography, lighting, and sets, and costumes as well. But all of these things help to construct a tone and an emotion beyond just the script and the acting. And they do it masterfully well, whether we're talking about the cold, sterile, controlling feeling that is the pure whiteness of the prison that Andor finds himself in, or whether we're talking about the opulent decadence and kind of the hazy hedonism that we find ourselves thrown into and falling around in at Mon Mothma's daughter's wedding. Both of these are very different vibes in terms of the look and the way that they're shot, and all of that is a decision that was made to create a mood. And both of them create very different moods and do it extremely well. We're not just doing talking heads and great scripts. We are doing visual storytelling, which is also why Andor is a show that you need to watch. You can't really have it on in the background and not be paying attention. I mean, you can, but you're going to be missing about 50% of the storytelling because it is very visual, and that's what makes it a great story. Every element of this story is well thought out in terms of how it contributes to the larger narrative and to the nuance of the characters. The ending for this show destroyed me because of Rogue One, because this story also exists in a pocket of our universe, of our time, where we know what the ending is. We've already done the ending before we've done the beginning of the story. And so because of that, we know we're hurtling towards doom, towards the final end for someone like Andor, and knowing that the whole time. And yet when you get there, it's so much more meaningful because now we know everything that was at stake getting up to that point, and everything that Cassian is leaving behind to go on this mission, everything that he sacrificed to get to this point, and how, in a way, it is honestly insane that the characters that we see in Rogue One managed to make it there and managed to accomplish their mission against all odds, because Cassian, even surviving up to this point, it's kind of crazy. It really heightens the tragedy that you feel when you realize what's happening when Bix leaves Andor, even knowing that she is his purpose in life and loving him as much as she does. She does it because she knows that if he is to find out the truth, that she is going to have a baby and they're going to have a family, that will be the end of the fight, that Cassian will stay with her. And so she chooses to leave to help him stay, not knowing that when he goes on this next mission, it's going to be the last mission. When I think about that final shot of Bix, it's like a dagger to my heart. The show makes you fall in love with all of these characters, and then it just shows you the cost of war. It shows you the cost of revolution, and how in order for us to make change, there is so much that ends up being sacrificed along the way. And sometimes people have to do that to make a better tomorrow that they'll never see. Anyways, I love this show clearly, and I love ranting about it, so I hope that you enjoyed my thoughts and my rant and my review, if you will. Overall, this show is probably one of the best shows I've ever seen, never mind in terms of Star Wars. So did it live up to the hype? It exceeded the hype for me, and I think the more I went on, the more I fell in love with it. So if you love this and you would like more in-depth reviews for me on episodes, or if you want me to go more into season 1 specifically and then season 2 specifically, let me know. Share this video, hype it if you have access to that feature. Comment, like, subscribe if you're not subscribed and you like this content. Let me know that you like it, because I would love to talk more about Andor. It is such an amazing show. I could go on and gush about it forever. And also let me know if you want that Rome video. I'm still thinking about talking about Rome at some point. We really need to do it. By the end of Andor, I was just so locked in. I loved it so much. It's just wild to me that I went from being so mad about this show to falling absolutely head over heels in love with this show and becoming super invested by the end of it to the point that I didn't even want to finish it because I was sad because it would be over. That's all I have for this one. Let me know if you want more Andor content down in the comments below. And if you love when I talk about Star Wars, you need to check out this video where I talked about my Mandalorian and Grogu theories. I cannot wait for this movie. I'll see you guys in the next one. And until then, friends, stay nerdy. Bye.